My journey into ministry. Where do I get started? Where do I start? So my name is Maureen. I am Kenyan, first of all. I am 32 years old, nearly 33. I am a mom of two boys already and another baby on the way. We don't know what it is yet. Looking forward to finding out. I'm married to Timothy Hamblin, a lovely Northern Irish man, and if you want to watch videos about marriage and my rants about marriage, please go ahead. I have many videos. I'm very open about talking about marriage and about talking about stuff that frustrates us. So on my channel, you will find stuff about spirituality, race, marriage, all sorts of stuff. But yeah, so I want to talk about my journey from having a profession to going into my calling. And I don't know why I do this because it was a profession. I was a clinical physiologist, and I left that to pursue ministry. But I wanted to do like a backstory about that and to talk about, for those of you who are spiritually oriented and especially Christianity, to talk about how to hear the voice of God when it comes to your life. So, where do I start? So I was born in Kenya, and I had an interesting life. Interesting life. So I did not live with either of my parents until I was about 11. And in between that, I lived with my granny, and then I went to boarding school. I think I was about 7 or 8. But all my life, and that's a story for another day. I'll go into all that in other videos. But all my life, I've always had this strong pull towards spiritual things and towards God. Always. And it's funny because it didn't quite click in my head that I always had a strong pull towards those things, okay? But I remember one time my granny being away when I was living with her, and she was away somewhere, and it was a Sunday morning. We used to be Catholic, so I remember getting up, and so I went to boarding school when I was about 7 or 8. So this is before I'm 7 or 8, so I was probably 6 or 5, I can't remember, but it's one of my early memories. And I had a big fro. And I woke up that morning, my granny wasn't there, and I decided I'm gonna go to church anyway. So this girl puts all these clips and flowers in her hair, literally. Like, I wish somebody took a picture of me. I wish I lived in the iPhone era to see, to see all my fashion faux pas in the past. But I remember putting so many clips because my granny wouldn't let me put all those clips in my hair on a normal day. So I remember putting all those clips and flowers in my hair and going to church and having a nice day. But I remember thinking to myself, I cannot miss church. And for me, it was always so important to pray and to go to church and to do all these things. So I go to boarding school at 7 or 8, and my boarding school was affiliated with the church, with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We had become Seventh-day Adventists, and so it's the, oh God, every time I go back to Kenya, I haven't been now in about 3 years, but every time I go, I stop at that school because a lot of my trauma was from that school, and I laugh now when I say that, but also a lot of my good moments were in that school. It's really weird, but this school was made out of iron sheets. I I don't know what another name for iron sheets are. Anyway, so it's a mess, and there were like holes in these iron sheets, and it was freezing at night. We had cold showers, and it was toilets, holes in the middle of a little room type of toilet. Yeah, but one thing I remember is running in the morning, being forced to run in the morning. I'm glad they forced us, because actually when I moved to Ireland at 11, 12, I kept running in the mornings until I gave it up a few years later. I should have never given it up. I wouldn't have gained as much weight as I did. But I remember the running in the morning, and I remember the running in the morning, and I remember the praying in the morning. So we had morning devotions, I think at about 5 o'clock. And we would sing, even at 5 a.m., we would sing on top of our voices, and then somebody would preach. It was usually one of the teachers, but as we got older, they would let us preach, and I was one of those preachers. And then in the evening, we will have our evening devotions as well. And every single day, morning, night, you prayed, you heard a sermon, all of that. And then on Saturdays, we had church, and it was like a whole day affair. And Friday night as well, to welcome the Sabbath. And but I remember I preached a few times, and I wrote my first song in that school. About Jesus. I can't remember the song now, but yeah, a lot of my spiritual growing was in that school. So anyway, fast forward, we moved to Ireland. I still go to church, but it doesn't have the same, as it did for me, especially in my boarding school. But I still go, and no matter where I am on Friday night, I am in church on Saturday. That's me. But I also like dancing, and I also like boys. Never liked alcohol, never liked smoking, didn't take up drugs, just dancing and boys. And so no matter where I was on Friday night, I was in church on Saturday all day, and then maybe go out on Saturday night. But that was my life. And then I went to uni, college, whatever you call it, and it was there that I really realized that I was a Jesus girl, because even when we went out or whatever, I was still kind of like, people still knew I was different. And then one of the things that I had, so I had a class on Saturdays, and having been raised as Seventh-day Adventist, you try and keep the Sabbath holy, right? So you don't go to school, you don't go to work on the Sabbath. A lot of people don't buy or sell on Sabbath. So a lot of businesses that are owned by Seventh-day Adventist people are closed on Saturdays. So I had a class on Sabbath. And I remember being like, and kind of going to like all these different department heads to be like, I can't, because, and they were just like, well, can you not just ask your priest or whatever, your spiritual leader to can't think of the word. Anyway, to kind of sign it off as okay. And I was just like, but they don't give the permission. I was like, it's in the Bible, like, and I remember being really confused, being like, my pastor can't just be like, well, so I remember they gave me, so this is like final year. Was it final year? Yeah, so it was a big deal. It was final year of my university, and they let me miss the class. And then I went up to the teacher, and she, and I don't know if it's because I had challenged her. One time she was defining attenuation, but I didn't feel like the definition was right. I still remember. But she was like, oh God, what was she? Oh yeah, she was like, yeah, it's your choice if you don't come to class, but I don't have to give you any notes. So I was like, God. So anyway, I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So didn't go to class any of the Saturdays, and then but my friend Majida, oh, she was lovely. She was from Oman. She gave me her notes, and literally like that class. So I did the exam. So the first exam was on a Saturday, so I couldn't sit it, and then the repeat exam was in August on a weekday, so they let me sit that exam during that time, and that was my highest score. And I was just like, oh, okay. And so never showed up for class, but I studied for that thing. And I was just like, God, I'm just doing what I thought, what you told me. And then my graduation was on Saturday and I didn't go. Anyway, all this backstory is to show you how I've been a Jesus girl, but in my head, I always thought that I was a science girl as well. So yeah, in my actions and in my life, I was like always like, okay, I always knew Jesus, God, church was a big part of my life. And then, but I always, I wanted money. I wanted to become richer, to rich, when you come from like wearing no shoes, story for another day, to like, so I wanted to be rich. There's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, so I finished my degree and I'm working at the Mater Private, and it was really great. Like, it was lovely. It was like, I needed it. Like, it was such a big boost to my confidence. Yeah, it was just lovely. It was nice. There were some challenges, but it was really nice. And I'm so glad I got to work there. Anyway, I was working there about 3.5 years, and I woke up one day, and the whole time I'm working there, I'm still active in church. I never considered ministry because I'm like, women don't, like really in my traditional Seventh-day Adventist background, women do not become pastors. I'm a Black woman in a white country, so it never crossed my mind. Also, I wanted to be rich. So, and I don't know, unless you're a pastor of a mega church, like, ministry, especially in my background, pastors are not rich. They're not poor, but they're not rich either. Anyway, so I worked there, and I'm there for about 3.5 years, and I just started getting discontent and maybe even frustration. So I was just like, okay, so I'm doing all these tests and I'm doing this and that, but I don't feel fulfilled. Like, what does it feel like to be fulfilled? But I wasn't even sure what that felt like, but I knew that I wasn't fulfilled. So I started talking to a few of the doctors, and because my department actually had a lot of female doctors, so I was talking to them, and I was just like, I'm really considering going into medicine, and because that's what I initially, like as a little girl, always thought I was going to be a doctor. And actually both of them were not very encouraging. They were like, don't do it. And then but I was like, I'm gonna do it anyway. So I did my GAMSAT, did my HPAT, and I think I did my GAMSATs again. So these are graduate entry level exams. So I did those exams and missed them. And literally one of my GAMSATs, I missed it by either 3 or 5 points. It was so small that I was just like, oh, come on. And then it hit me that I hadn't prayed. I've never prayed for what God wanted me to do with my life. I've never prayed. I thought I was a science girl because I enjoyed science and maths and whatever. I enjoyed them, but I was also told I was good at them. So I just took it that I was supposed to go into like something scientific and medical. And for the first time in my 20 whatever years of life, I think I was 24, 25 at the time, I'm like, oh, okay, well, let me pray. So I sat to pray, and this was like in May of I think 2013. So I pray and I'm like, God, if I'm supposed to do medicine, show me, and I'll reapply to do the GAMSATs again. If not, show me what I'm supposed to do. And I kind of leave it. And then I wake up in September of that year, and I just knew I had to go and study for ministry. Now, people, had never considered that as an option in my life for many, many different reasons. Like I mentioned already, I'm a woman, Black woman, and no money. Well, not a lot of money, and yeah, it never crossed my mind. And I'm sitting up in my bed. I remember I was living in Phibsborough at the time on Connaught Street. I remember the room. I remember my bed sheets. I remember just waking up and being like, this is what I'm gonna do. And texting my pastor, who was very, very supportive, I must say, on my spiritual journey in those kind of 3-4 years. And he was just like, wow. So he was like, okay, let's plan to meet. So we met up, and he was just like, he was really excited, because he was like, I can't believe this, because 2 other people from a group of people of us that he was mentoring had also had this revelation that they wanted to go into ministry, but they were guys, okay? But he was super excited, but he also said to me, you need to remember this. You need to remember the call, because when you go into ministry, you're going to question everything. You're going to question whether you really ever heard. And I just remember being like, And with this call, with this knowing that I needed to go into ministry, was also this revelation that Maureen, and I had just done an album. I like to sing, and I was in a community gospel choir. I love writing poetry. But with that came this realization that you're never really a scientific person per se. Like, you are good at it, but your heart swells and your soul is alive when you're doing arts, like when you're singing, when you're writing poetry, when you're doing all of this. So it was weird. It was just like, I thought I was this person, and then here was this new revelation. Anyway, so I leave my job that December. I go to Brazil for just over 3 months in 2014. And I go to Brazil to sing, because I remember I had done this CD, and my Brazilian friend had said to me, I think they would really like you there. I like your sound, blah, blah, blah. So he organized a few singing places for me. And that was just a transforming trip. I'm so glad I did it. So I did that trip, and I'm supposed to go to Andrews University in Michigan to do my master's. I had applied already, and they had accepted me, and I'm supposed to go after I come back from Brazil. But then me and Tim, my husband now, get back together. We had broken up for a bit, while I was finding myself and traveling. And we get back together, and then we have this crazy idea. We're like, why not get married and go to Andrews together? So we have this really short engagement. We had dated for 2 years before that. But we have like a 3.5 month engagement, and then we get married in August 5th, and Andrews are like, you can't come in September because you do not have an undergraduate in theology. We need you to come next May, which actually worked out well, because me and Tim got to like have most of our first year of marriage in Belfast together, and then we got to save up a bit, and then we went. So yeah, I got to Andrews University, and oh my goodness, so there are very few things that I've been so sure of when they happen, right? And that is when first of all, when me and Tim got together the first time, actually, for the first time, I felt it was like falling on like a mattress, like a comfy mattress, right? Now I'll talk about my dating life in other videos. But it was just like I had these crazy relationships that were always so insecure and frustrating and anxiety inducing. And with Tim, it was just like falling on this like lovely, beautiful, expensive mattress that was just so comfortable and you did not want to get up from. And although we broke up after our 2 years together, I have never been more sure of anyone. And actually, when we got back together, it was because I had been praying to God and being like, okay, I'm going to Andrews. Tim was still at the back of my mind, and I was just like, I need you to show me whether it's over or whatever. And then literally God showed me I'll do a video about that at that time. Anyway, so I've never been more sure of, I haven't been sure of many things, but Tim and my call to ministry. And so when I got to Andrews, it was just so, when you're just like, this is what I'm supposed to be. And every class, every word, every Greek and Hebrew, oh, people, it was just like, I'm home. I did not have that feeling with my first degree. I did well. I got a first class honors degree. But I did not have this I'm home feeling, this kind of like out of this world feeling. Oh, it was just so good. And why do I cry in almost every video? But it was just like this feeling of being home, and I am so glad I did it. And there was so much, there was a lot of like negative talk, a lot of, what are you doing? You're leaving everything. Women don't do this. Somebody told me when me and Tim had broken up, this woman told me, you're not going to get a husband if you go into ministry who's going to want to marry you. Like just so many crazy, crazy things that I was just like, am I doing the right thing? But I knew what I felt. I knew what I heard. It wasn't a big audible voice, but I knew, when I woke up that September in 2013, I just knew. And when I got to Andrews, it took me 3.5 years to finish my master's because I had a baby and then I was pregnant and stuff. But every semester my tuition was paid. Our rent was paid, God provided, and when I graduated with zero balance, 0.00. Like I owed Andrews University nothing. And every semester, at the beginning of the semester, we were like, we have no idea how we were going to pay for anything. Literally, like it was thousands of money at the beginning, and at the end of the semester it was like zero. But yeah, and then graduating, and then the third thing that so 3 things I've been super, 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 and I guess the third one is connected to the second one. So Tim, my call to ministry, and then my call back to Ireland. So we, some of you might know the story, but I graduated. I had done some interviews over in America, got offered a job in a conference over there, as they wanted a woman of color as well. Like, and let me tell you about America. There are many things I don't like about America, but America helped me find my blackness and my confidence in my blackness, and it showed me that there was nothing to be ashamed of. I met so many wonderful, educated, powerful, black people who were not scared of anything, and who were godly people and spiritual people, and but they were confident in themselves. And I always felt like, as a Christian, I couldn't be black as well. It was weird. Anyway, but America gave me my blackness. So when they were looking for a woman of color, I was like, this is great. I can just be myself. Because it was a mixed church with a white pastor, a Hispanic pastor, and then they really wanted a black woman, or a woman of color, but a black woman. And I had this the person that was doing most of the hiring, he was like so excited about me. And then both Tim and I, hear a sermon. I was outside of the church, he was inside, and on the drive home, we're both like, we need to go back. And this is at a point where I needed to let the conference in America know whether I was going to take that job or not. And I knew that we needed to go back. I just knew. And so I emailed that guy straight away. I think it was that night or the next morning, because I was like, if I don't email him, I'm going to change my mind, because it's so tempting to take this job. And so I emailed him, and he was like, really, like, he was just like, only if you're sure. And he was like, but this actually makes me want you to hire you more, because you're listening to the voice of God. And I was just like, God. And I knew, so Ireland, the church, the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Ireland, had told me already that they were not going to hire me, but we came back in faith. We came back in faith. And I must say, the first year, almost even two, was agonizing, because I knew I was supposed to be here, but my calling did not look like what I expected it to look like. Like, my calling did not look like my assignment, where I was assigned at the time, having babies, looking after babies, and going to mommy groups. And it was agonizing, and people being like, oh, do you expect us to call you pastor now? And, people making fun of you, people saying this is why you're not getting hired, because you're very vocal about black people getting shot. Don't get me started. Family people saying these things, and you're like, I don't think that is the reason I'm not hired. And you're like, people are dying. Like, if I don't call it out as a Christian, who will? Anyway, so I have never been more sure, even though it's been aggravating and annoying, but when I stopped fighting it, oh my goodness, I got the most beautiful peace. And let me tell you, like, I love my life right now, right? Not because I'm loaded, so I never became rich. We're on one income, right? Tim is working, I'm home with the kids, I'm homeschooling a 4-year-old, while looking after a 2-year-old. I'm 19 weeks pregnant, nearly 20 weeks, but yet my life has never felt more meaningful. And I'm telling you, in the last 2.5, nearly 3 years, it has been a healing time. I've hit rock bottom, but the great thing about hitting rock bottom is that you get back up. Like, you can only go up. You can only go up. I hit rock bottom, and it was when I was at rock bottom that I met God, like truly met God, and truly understood what God meant when he said he loved me. Like, now I have no doubt about God's love. And then, I have no doubt about God's love. And then, not only that, but we, Tim and I reconnected. Our marriage went through so much at Andrews, between being broke and having babies and just whatever. I think had we stayed in America, we would have gotten divorced or just been really unhappily married. And then, like, I've met so many wonderful people. I've met the Christian Fellowship Church in Belfast has been such a blessing to me. So much healing has come from them and through them, and God through them. And I've met so many wonderful friends that who bless me, who some of them don't believe in God, are atheists, whatever, but we have a connection, and I just love that. And then I have other friends who are Christian, and who some of them are stronger Christian than I am, and that's really blessing me. And then others are not as strong as I am, and I get to bless them, but they also get to bless me. And I know I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I have no doubt anymore, and it's not painful anymore. It's such a beautiful thing. All this to say, this whole 30-minute video to say that wherever you're planted, first of all, bloom with grace. Okay, it might not feel like what you dreamt for your life, but if God places you somewhere, allow him to bloom you in grace. And then if that's where you're really supposed to be, he will give you so much peace about it, and he will grow you. And do you know what? Growth does not look like what we often think it looks like. So for me, growth would have been, working in a church, preaching every week and doing whatever. But God knew that in this season, my growth had to be inner healing, inner child healing, trauma healing, raising my babies, and really like grounding them. Side note, if you are a parent, from 0 to 3 is such a critical age. Every book I read, every video I watch from experts talks about how important the age from 0 to 3 is. And I'm so glad I get to spend that time with my kids. And I'm still preaching. I get to preach to churches all over the world via Zoom and whatever. Not as often, which is actually great because I'm not as exhausted. But if God wants you somewhere, he will give you peace about it, and you will just know that that's where you're supposed to be. And if you're not supposed to be there, you're gonna feel it as well. You're gonna know that that's where you're supposed to be. But on hearing the voice of God, it is possible. God is still speaking in 2015. In 2021, God still speaks, but we need to listen. We need to close our laptops. I'm speaking to myself because Netflix can be so addictive. Close your laptop and spend that time, and turn your phone and spend that time speaking and listening. But I want you to know that God has a plan for your life, and it might not be full-time ministry like me. It might be whatever, but whatever he needs you to be, he will let you know, and he will give you so much fulfillment and so much peace, as you obey him. And so blessings on you all, and take care.